Good evening, Sawadee-ka, and good morning from the East Coast of the United States. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you. Good to go.
Good, thank you very much. I'm happy to be with you. I'm sorry I'm not with you in person, but as we go through the presentation this morning, I will tell you why I'm not there to speak to you live. Certainly, you are welcome to send me any questions that this presentation might have. For those of you that don't know me, my name is Geoff Whaling. I am the chairman of the National Hemp Association, which is based in Washington, D.C. I'm going to need someone to allow me to scroll through my presentation. I've got it here now. Thank you. I'm going to talk about my journey into the hemp industry. I've been in this space now for 10 years. I've helped lead the cannabidiol CBD launch here in the United States starting about 10 years ago. I have been the chairman of the National Hemp Association for 6 years, and certainly we continue to work to advance research and development, to bring capital to our industry, to educate the private sector, and also work addressing the legislation that is most important to the industry, really bifurcating fiber and grain from cannabinoids. You might also know that I was the co-founder and chairman of Canopy Growth HIP Developments. Canopy, based in Canada, my homeland, became the largest cannabis and hemp company on the planet. We grew the company from making our first pitch to 3 people in a room, including a rabbit, to a company with a market share of $20 billion. That happened as a result of 34 fund rounds, near bankruptcy twice, but we ended up becoming the very first publicly traded company on the New York Stock Exchange. I had $1 billion budget to launch the hemp space in the United States, but as many of you might know, Constellation Brands made a $7 billion investment in Canopy and decided that industrial hemp was not their focus. As a beverage company, they were interested in THC and CBD, but we were close. Bruce Linton, the co-founder of Canopy Growth, and I then created Collective Growth Corporation, looking at the financial instrument called a SPAC, a special purpose acquisition company. And we were the very first SPAC to go to the markets on Zoom. And in 7 hours, we were offered $242 million against a goal of 150 million. That allowed us to look at researching some 200 hemp companies around the world. The goal was to acquire or to combine a number of those companies, bring them to the United States to end up starting the supply chain. But what we realized in looking at those 200 companies, and something that all of you should keep in mind, is that in order to either be sold or become a publicly traded company in the United States, you have to have 2 years worth of trailing audits. And certainly revenues are going to be really important. We were hopeful that the industry would have revenues that would allow us to invest a minimum of $120 million, but we couldn't do that. So we had to pivot away from our goal of investing in the hemp industries. Otherwise, Bruce and I would lose our investment in the SPAC. And we then looked at aligning ourselves with other sectors, and certainly ended up with a $1.4 billion transaction in the automotive sector, taking along Magna International and BMW, both who are using sustainable fibers in the manufacturing of the products they make for the auto industry. I've now just launched a new fund, specifically knowing how desperate the industry is for venture capital. Replant Hemp is that fund. It's a $500 million venture capital fund, and I have teamed up with some of the best in the industry, companies like Clearbrook, who is a $10 billion ESG capital fund. My partner in this is Michael Wood, Michael Woods is the former head of the Rothschild family office and head of Deutsche Wealth Management here in the United States. We're on track to close our first round at the end of March, so stay tuned. So let me just review what we've been doing at the National Hemp Association for the last 10 years. Certainly our focus has always been on legalizing industrial hemp, which we did through the 2014 and 2018 Farm Bill. But certainly what we've realized is that this is a commodity that's been absent in our landscape for 85 years and certainly has come with its challenges. Just the fact that we have legalized it, it's in legislation, the president signed it into law. We've removed hemp from the Controlled Substances Act. It should be treated like a commodity, but in fact it's not. We have had to go one by one, agency by agency, and sometimes employee after employee to educate them on this opportunity. That is a $15 trillion global total addressable market. What we've done is we've started to undertake an international outreach. We've started to work on key collaborations. We've established standing committees that will help us deliver on messaging. We've created a not-for-profit charitable organization, and certainly we're working on our ask of the Farm Bill, and that's why I'm not with you today, because that process is starting tomorrow in Washington. Our international outreach, the work that we've done here in America has resulted in a number of agencies and organizations around the world coming to us looking for guidance and assistance as they're looking at changing the policies that are in place. I've had the great pleasure of speaking at the United Nations, the UN Food and Agricultural Organization, IFAD, which is the International Funding of Agriculture and Development, and the World Bank. Each of those organizations are now starting to look at ways that they can adjust their policies and communicate the changes in those policies to their local and regional offices so that it will be easier for all of you to get access to funding. I've also been pleased to be a speaker at the World Forum on Global Food Security at COP27, and more recently at the US-Africa Leader Summit in DC, where we've had some 11 nations approach us, asking us to help them with regulations and guidance. The results of our efforts you will see, and certainly this QR code will take you to the report that was issued in December by the UN Conference on Trade and Development. They have been working with our colleagues in the industry to develop this report, which is the first ever released by a United Nations agency looking at hemp as a commodity. It's one of the greatest opportunities that we've had in breaking down the barriers to reintroduce hemp around the globe. We've also started to create these key collaborations, and I would encourage all of you, as you are looking at developing relationships and educating, is not trying to do it on your own, but working with organizations similar to what we've done in the United States, with organizations that can help deliver the message about the potential of hemp in your country and around the globe. Certainly what we've done is we've worked with the Food and Agricultural Climate Alliance, Cool Farm Alliance, the Hemp Feed Coalition, and Ag Bioeconomy Coalition in delivering that message, and it's working out very, very well. The other things that we continue to do are the Farm Bill. Since industrial hemp has been prohibited in the United States for the last 85 years, we continue to realize that there is no perfect legislation and that it is a slow but steady process in working out the challenges of returning this crop to our farmlands. We continue to work with the House Agricultural Committee, the US Senate Agricultural Committee, and the White House on the Farm Bill, which is currently being negotiated. It's a piece of legislation that is hundreds of billions of dollars here in the United States. And because it is such a large piece of legislation, it's only renegotiated every 5 years. This time around, it is the House Agricultural Committee that will lead the Farm Bill. And certainly we're working with them on trying to, again, tighten programs, bring funding to advance research that is needed for our industry. We are now also looking to take a whole of government approach to industrial hemp. It's one of the essential requirements in order for us to really get hemp back on the landscape, and so that we don't have to continue to fight. We don't need to continue to educate. We don't continue to ask for each agencies to include industrial hemp within their legislation. It's one of the things as you might work in your homelands and work with your governments in making sure that they're addressing not the issues that are important to you today, but what are going to be important to your industry 10 years from now. For us, the biggest challenges have been with the Food and Drug Administration. And certainly the issue on cannabinoids has led the discussions, but that is not the only thing that the Food and Drug Administration has oversight with. We just had a discussion with some of their leadership on Friday, and we're working with them as we work into the 2023 Farm Bill to make sure that they're given the legislative authority and the parameters in legislation that will allow them to do their job. We are also wanting to make sure that they are addressing the issues that are most important and the biggest opportunity for the fiber and grain side of industrial hemp. We are allowed as human beings to consume hemp grain, hemp hearts, but we cannot feed it to any animals that are going into the food system. The Food and Drug Administration is looking for research to prove out that cannabinoids will not transfer. They are clearly concerned about the cumulative effects of cannabinoids on the human system. And certainly that could come from as a result of someone drinking water that is infused with CBD, from someone using a tincture, from someone having a breakfast egg that comes from a chicken that has been fed with hemp seed. So all of those things need to be addressed through research. If not, we're asking the Food and Drug Administration to include hemp in the 1958 food additive petition, which excluded it. That is when the Food and Drug Administration was created. And certainly corn and soy and wheat were all given this exclusion. And had the federal government not prohibited industrial hemp at that time, industrial hemp would have been included in that petition that gave all the other commodities GRAS status. We're also asking for the FDA to allow for hemp that is grown in the United States to be exported to nations that are willing to accept it for such purposes. The FDA does, believe it or not, have control over hemp that might be exported to a nation that would use it for animal feed. Since animal feed is not legal in the United States, they will not allow hemp seed to be exported for that purpose. We're going to correct that. The other thing that we're going to be asking for is that there be more funding for staff for the Center of Veterinary Medicine, which is one of the biggest barriers that we have in bringing hemp food for animals to the marketplace. The first step that we're going to be asking for is that animal feed be allowed for domestic animals, for dogs, cats, and horses. That is a $3.5 billion industry here in the United States. The ask that we're also making of the 2023 Farm Bill, most important, are our grain and hemp fiber exemption, our hemp grain for animal feed, and a 1% THC level. I think that we have consensus across the board that these are the three most important issues that we need to get across the finish line in the 2023 Farm Bill, which must be passed by September of this year. If you're not familiar with our grain and fiber hemp exemption, this is really an important step to allow farmers to return hemp into their rotation. This piece of legislation, which will be introduced next week in the US Senate, will absolutely bifurcate hemp fiber and grain from cannabinoids. It will eliminate the process of farmers getting a background check, subjecting themselves to fingerprinting, and will have a more open inspection and testing protocol. where that crop will be visually inspected. I hope you're all aware that a hemp fiber and grain crop is much different visually from a cannabinoid crop. And certainly we are hopeful that this will allow farmers to adopt hemp for grain and fiber more readily, because right now many of them have told us that they feel that they're being treated like drug dealers, and it's something that they're not accustomed to. We have great support for this piece of legislation, and certainly given the opportunity to add hemp into the rotation, it's very important. Let's remember that there are farmers that grow commodities. There is no such thing as a hemp farmer. We want farmers that grow commodities to add hemp and a hemp rotation into their offerings. One of the things that's most important to us, and certainly we invite you to participate in this, is that we've created a standing committee for international hemp organizations. It's free for you to participate in. We've had our first meeting last week. I think we have 12 nations that are already participating with us. And it is one of the most important things in building a global hemp industry. We want to make sure that everyone is working towards the same goal. Obviously, we've been in this space for 10 years, so we have a lot of materials that we can share that you can adopt for your own purposes and discussions. But we are also hopeful that through this platform, we will be able to work in addressing, creating a global marketplace. One of the challenges that exists today, but certainly we have worked to address it with large decortication fiber processing companies, is that there is not sufficient of a supply chain to deal with a big contract. So we're working in ways of collaboration where fiber development might be something that can be worked through with groups in Australia, in Montana, and in Canada, to be able to meet the multi-million-dollar opportunity that the auto industry is looking for. The standing committees are ways that we can help support you, and certainly we would encourage you to participate in it. We are always here to help you. We're always available. We have about 30 people on our team that are willing and able to assist you. So I would ask you to reach out to the National Hemp Association at any time so that we can help you share information and documents. With that, I thank you.